Feels like. You're like.
So this is Senate Transportation. We're a little late. And I apologize to the committee. It's Thursday, the 27th, and we're here with the rail program from AOT. And
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Dan Delavriere. I'm the Rail Bureau Director for VTrans. And today I'm going to be giving you just a quick update, sort of on the whole program, and then quickly go through some highlights of the rail budget this year, and answer any questions you might have about that. So, it's okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, should be.
This works. That works.
It thinks it's working, yeah.
Okay. Here. The snipper truck. That's the snipper truck. It's supposed to be starting here.
Like one.
No.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can arrow that.
Snooper truck. I've never seen the snooper.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
Pretty cool.
Is that attractive?
Did we authorize that in the House
Yeah,
Transportation?
we did.
A long time ago, right?
We did.
Do we just have one?
We only need one, but yeah, we only have one. Well, we have one that goes on the rail.
Right.
The VTrans has others that are only for the highways, and then we use the one for rails also for highways occasionally. So,
Cool.
all right, a quick overview, and I'll run through this real quick so we have enough time to go through the budget stuff. But I thought I'd give you just a quick overview on, what is railroads? What does it mean to Vermont? Why is it important? So railroads in Vermont, it actually is more regional than you think. So Vermont sort of sits in the middle of some large seaports. So Montreal, Providence, Rhode Island, Boston. There's a lot of containers, a lot of material that come in on ships that actually go on the railroads and then travel through Vermont to get to the different regions of New England. So on a normal day, we have between 150 to 200 rail cars that move in and out of Vermont every single day. So if you convert that, if we didn't have railroads and we had to convert that onto trucks, that's about 600 to 800 additional trucks per day. So as you can tell, that's a lot of trucks that we would add to our highways. So rail's important. Vermont Rail Systems is who leases Vermont-owned rail lines, and they are a Vermont-based company. And 90% of what they move on the rail either originates or terminates in Vermont. So that's very important to a lot of Vermont businesses. So they move around 22,000 rail cars per year. So that's quite a lot. So they also obviously are a business, between Vermont Railway, New England Central. There's about 225, and this is an approximate number. It's actually gone up a little bit. I just haven't got the new number, but there's about 225 Vermont-based jobs. So they're well-paying railroad jobs that are here in Vermont. So they employ a lot of folks. And then there's sort of ancillary jobs that go outside of that. So if there's construction or other things like that need to be done on rail lines, there's a lot of construction companies that rely on the railroads for business every year. What do they move? Well, they move a lot of commodities like road salt, feed products, fuel oil, propane, stone products, lumber. A lot of the grains that the farmers use come in and out of the state on rail. And then we also have our two rail passenger trains, the Ethan Allen and the Vermonter. A little bit closer view of what we have. So there's 572 miles of active railroad in the state. 298 of those actually belong to the state of Vermont, and 274 are privately owned. So state-owned assets, 298 miles of active rail line. We have 149 miles of rail banked line. Those are the rail trails. 172 responsible rail bridges on active rail lines. So that's what's in the rail program. So when we talk about bridges, rail bridges, we have 172 that we're responsible for that go into our rail program and 422 public crossings.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Go ahead.
So rail bridges, are those bridges over the rail or bridges of the rail over something else?
So they could be both, but typically here, they're generally rail bridges over like a river. They're not generally road bridges over a railroad.
Okay,
I think that's your question, right?
yes, yes.
Or a railroad bridge over a road.
A railroad bridge over a road, yeah, that could be, so there's actually 214 rail bridges that V-Trans owns, but in our lease to the railroads, we're only responsible for 172 based on the size and when it goes over. There's criteria in our lease that talk about who's responsible for what bridge.
Well, that would be helpful to see. And then I just have another question, just general, and this might be something for another time, but just the capacity of the rail for more freight.
I have a slide a little bit.
Oh, good.
Yeah, to show a little bit about that.
Great,
Um,
perfect, yeah.
Oops, there I went the wrong way. A little bit more about our rail passenger service. So these are the two rail lines. The passenger services, the Vermonter and the Ethan Allen that I was talking about. The Vermonter starts in St. Albans every day and ends up in Washington, DC, goes through New York City. We have a southbound and a northbound train every single day. On the Ethan Allen, we start in Burlington, which is a couple of years old. We used to start in Rutland, now we start in Burlington. And we go down to New York City. New York City is our #1 destination for both trains. That's where everybody seems to want to go. Because once you get to New York City, you can kind of go anywhere. So, yeah. Goals that we currently have in the rail program, obviously safe and efficient movement of goods. We support economic development through transportation. 286,000 pound weight capacity is the rail standard.
Yeah, I was thinking more about, you had a number of 150 to 200 rail cars. How much could we move is what I'm asking.
So when you talk about a rail car, if it's so you can load it, the typical standard is 263,000, which is the old rail standard. That's about depending on the commodity. Now, this is not an exact science, but in general terms, 263, that's about 3 tractor trailer trucks. 286,000 pounds, that's about 4 tractor trailer trucks.
Yeah, let me try to, so I'm not saying it clearly, like how many more cars could we move? Not how much, each one would weigh, but are we at like 30% or 50% or 70%? Just in terms of capacity for traffic and
Yes.
there's got to be some sort of limit.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, the number of cars in a train
Yeah,
is not limited by the bridge.
no, I guess, so say there's 10 trains a day that are moving freight.
Okay.
Could we, with the amount of sidings that we have and track that we have, how much more busy could we be in terms of capacity of the trains and freight?
So it's a hard question to answer, sort of the economics of how much more can we move through the state if we were all 286,000 pounds, right? Is that sort of your question?
No, it wasn't even that. It was just the system, like how you need sidings and in case there's 2 trains. Yeah, it's not the weight.
It's not the weight, it's capacity.
Yeah.
I think what she's asking is if you had more product to move,
Yeah,
you could move it. You just put a couple extra cars
Yeah,
up.
we have capacity to
He
move
wants to know
more.
what's that extra capacity?
yes, thank you for translating.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that because it's more based on the sort of rail freight economic business model than it is our infrastructure,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Okay, so
If
we
at some
probably
point
have a
you would-
lot.
Yeah,
We have more capacity to move more product.
Yeah.
and it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's not like a little, like you could just have a lot,
Right, so,
many longer trains without running into problems of the trains bumping into each other.
Right.
Not physically, but just like stripping the scheduling happening.
Exactly.
so I think I can answer this a little better, and now that I understand what you're asking, so this is a broad statement, it's not exact, but a typical train through Vermont is 30 to 40 cars.
Uh-huh.
You could go all the way to maybe 100 cars in a train before you would say, I better run another train, add a train instead of adding instead of running 110 cars, you would probably run a second train of, you'd split it up into two trains. I think that
Okay.
answers your question. There is more capacity to add more trains. There is more capacity to add more cars to the existing.
Okay, perfect. That's what I was.
Yeah.
And I suspect it's a lot,
Yeah, I mean,
like double, it sounds like we.
maybe, yeah. I mean, it also depends on, so things like, and you mentioned it, things like passing signs.
Yeah.
So if there is a southbound meeting a northbound freight train, you have to figure out, if there's 30 cars in that train or 40 cars in that train, will it fit on that siding so that it'll allow the other train to come by?
Exactly, yeah.
There is some restriction depending on the railroad there. I mean, if you get into a rail yard, there's probably room. If you meet in the rail yard, if you're meeting somewhere between rail yards, there are passing sidings. And there is some restrictions there. It's so like I'd have to know the exact scenario, but
Okay, that's
there's
enough.
more capacity. There's more capacity.
Okay, good.
So yeah, so other goals, so maintaining state of repair, and then our Vermont, we're extending Vermont service to Montreal. That's been a goal. We've been working on that for a long time. We are making progress on that.
Okay. Wait, can I ask some questions about that?
Yep.
So when you say that, that feels like it's very different than what I've heard recently, which is that we haven't made progress on that because the Canadians are not moving forward with their side of things. And it seems like based on the relationships that are being broken right now due to the federal government, in particular, President Donald Trump and his actions, that we are further from that goal. So, but I would be happy to be given alternative information.
Yeah, so we have monthly meetings with the folks in Quebec and Amtrak in New York, because we all are going to share a central station.
Yes.
And it's track 23. Back in 2014, there was initial like scoping study. Will it fit in the station? Right.
Yes.
So we all went up to Montreal and we like kind of scoped it up. It will fit. So this next level study that is.
And this is the sealed train component.
Yeah.
It's like the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so we're working with the province of Quebec. They have taken on the task of taking it to the next level. And that is taking that sort of scoping effort and looking at the Montreal Central Station a little closer. There is a report that's scheduled, I've seen it. There's a report that's scheduled to come out very soon to the public that talks about what the next steps are for the station itself. Now, we had a scoping study. We dove into the engineering of the building. It comes into the station and it goes under 3 different city blocks. It goes under different buildings owned by different people. When you get into the station itself has 3 different owners in the different levels. And it goes into a little bit more about the complications of how do we get to from where we are now to the next step of actually getting to construction of a station. We've been working with both sides of the border with their border protection folks on the criteria they're needing inside the station for pre-clearance, right? So pre-clearance is one of the most important things for us. We don't want to stop the train. Once you leave St. Albans, we don't want the train to stop until you get to Montreal, and vice versa. You don't leave Montreal, you don't want to stop till you get to St. Albans coming the other way. It only makes sense. If we have to stop for 2 hours at the border, people aren't going to ride the train. They're going to take their car, right? You can drive quicker, get through the border and get there. So it doesn't make sense. So the next level of the feasibility study is about to come out. It has very preliminary engineering. We need to take the next step, which I actually have in my budget, to go towards more of an engineering level study that will eventually go to bid for the actual Montreal station. So
Okay, so we are working incrementally.
we are making progress. I hope we continue to make progress with our current climate, but right now, nobody has changed any, the temperature of the room has not changed at all in our last several meetings, so I think we're on the right track.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is Massachusetts and Connecticut also participating? I mean, because they're gonna benefit if it would happen as well.
Absolutely. So Vermont's sort of taking the, we're sort of at the table for them right now. When we get a little further into it, when we actually start talking about, who's paying for what, and we start looking at our memorandum of understanding between the three states, that's a little bit further down the road. I keep them informed. We have quarterly meetings with Connecticut and Mass, and that's one of our agenda items that we talk about. So they're well informed, but they're not really at the table right now. I am, so I'm sort of representing the Vermonter.
And do you still have contract with Service, or who was it that was gonna help?
He
me?
passed away. So, yeah, so I'm the lead on that. So, yeah.
He was doing that.
Right. So when I was doing aviation and rail trails and rail, I didn't have the real capacity. Now that I'm just rail,
Okay,
I have more capacity to deal with that. I think that's a really good thing.
great, yeah.
So a couple,
Go ahead.
so on the priorities, you have the first priority is the Montreal.
Mhm.
But then now the second priority is relatively new, which is the Bennington, Manchester, Rutland. And it is now in ahead of the second Vermonter, which that's,
I don't know that it's ahead of it. It's sort of the
well,
same.
second to third. You have first priority, second priority, third priority.
Yeah, so,
So that's your district too.
I know. I'm very aware.
yeah, I think I would say, while we might have it listed that way, I think, getting from Rutland down through Bennington. So we have, I'm gonna back up a little bit. There's the FRA, and this is also in the budget, there's something called corridor ID.
Mhm.
Okay, so corridor ID, it talks about what are your future passenger goals. Well, one of our goals is Bennington to all the way down through into New York, and the other one is a second train on the Vermonter. So they're sort of equal. They're not, I don't think there's one really ahead of the other right now. We're working on
Well,
both,
it
we're
looks
working
like
on
it
both of
is.
them.
Yeah, I understand, but the Vermonter was in the plan 10 years ago, in 2015.
As
The
well as,
second Vermonter was,
yeah, and this one through Bennington was also.
was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's been in our rail plan since I've been here. And I've been
Okay.
here for 15 years.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but it maybe it is. So then what about the connection between Burlington and Essex Junction? That's really important to, so that the
That's,
trains connect to
that
each other.
is, that's in our corridor ID program as well for the Ethan Allen.
Okay, so, but you could put it on either one, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
I suppose, but it would never be the Vermonter going into Burlington. It would be the Ethan Allen going over to Essex.
okay. But still, it would provide a connection.
Yeah, yeah.
And then are we gonna talk about freight or passenger anymore, or is this the end of it? Cause I just have a different question about what people do when they get off the train or get on the train. You know, the connection between transit,
Oh, yeah.
and the train.
That, and that is a question that, it's a tough one. So the last mile
Right,
is always a hard one. So give you an example. For a while, right here in Montpelier, right, there was a big push to have some mode, either when we ended up using taxis, that would sit at the station when the train came in. People weren't using it. So the taxi folks were like, we're not doing it anymore. We're going over there wasting our time. So it's really demand based. And that is a very hard thing. Like, so the
Yeah.
Rutland, for instance, in the winter time, we get the question all the time, how do I get from the station to the mountain? Right? So we started working with the mountain, the skiers to say, can you guys provide some sort of a bus or something to meet the train? It wasn't getting used, right? So we tried it and it wasn't getting used. So it's a very difficult one to solve because we think there's some demand there, but we haven't proved it, or we haven't been able to sustain it.
Right, and it takes a little while. Well, Amtrak has in other places a system where you can pay for a ticket on the.
Through ticket.
Yeah, so how, we don't have that,
We do have that right
or at least I
now.
haven't seen it on our train.
So we do have that right now for a couple of examples. We actually have a through ticket out of Burlington. You can actually ride a bus. You can buy an Amtrak ticket out of Burlington
Yeah,
and ride the bus all the way down to Albany and then get on one of the Amtrak trains. It's a through ticket.
okay, so can we do that on the Vermonter?
To where?
To the ski resorts, to, I mean, all kinds of places.
Again, you would have to show demand, right? So, and getting a bus company, so we would have to subsidize the bus company to start that to do.
Well, we do manage the bus service.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if there was demand, I would say it just,
people want to go to Stratton, people want to go to Mount Snow, and there used to be a train that was the ski train years ago, so.
happy to pursue it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
mean-
it's not something we are pursuing currently,
Okay.
but happy to pursue it.
All right, I was told that we couldn't do it, that for some reason Amtrak's system didn't allow it.
No, they allow it, we just have to kind of prove demand, right? So running empty buses is not something Amtrak wants to.
No, of course not, but when you have a through ticket, you show the demand before the bus even gets there. I mean, the bus doesn't have to go there if there's no demand for it, if no one has purchased a ticket.
Well, in the bus business, you have to pay for that bus regardless if there's someone on it or not, right? So
Only on fixed route. We have a different kind of bus service now, the microtransit. We could use microtransit for that. So.
I'm not in the bus
okay.
business, but certainly if
Okay,
there's a
so
way to
that's
do it,
good.
if there's a way to
Well,
do
that's
it,
good
I'm happy to
news.
talk about it.
Yeah, because I was told that we couldn't do it from the Amtrak side.
Amtrak is, they're pretty good to work with as far as stuff like that.
Okay.
If we want to do something. It
Good,
all comes down to money, right?
yeah.
So. All right, I'm gonna keep moving on, because a little bit more just about our structure. So the Rail Bureau, we've got a couple things. We've got project delivery. We have property management. While we don't have the, responsibility of maintenance of the rail trails, we still do all the property management stuff for rail trails. So, and then we have a bridge engineer. Like I said, we have, bridges that we have to maintain. So we have a bridge engineer managing our FRA requirement for bridge management. And then we also have, rail safety, which is Operation Lifesaver, and our Amtrak, grants manager. So that's kind of how we're set up in the Rail Bureau. I just mentioned a little bit about our requirements, our federal requirements. PREA 209 is the requirement that for federal side that we pay for state supported services on Amtrak. Bridge safety standards, we have to maintain those and we have to report annually to the FRA on our load ratings for each bridge that we own. I was talking about the 200, the 172 that we're required to do. VRS does the other ones. And then our highway requirement for safety of crossings. This is just an example of one of the projects. I just wanted to show kind of what we did. This is just one of many last summer. It was just a good picture opportunity that I had just to show you sort of the before and after of one of the bridges we did last summer. We inspect every one of our, so there's 422 rail crossings in the state, public rail crossings. We inspect every one every single year. Now, this number, if you look at it, it says 456. The reason why it's 456 is because some crossings have more than one track at a crossing. So this is counting the tracks, not the crossings. And we're actually making progress, just to back up, we're actually making progress. We're doing, I was telling Senator Harrison that we have crossings in our program, but there's also Amtrak got safety money on the Amtrak lines, and they're working with Vermont Rail Systems and they're working with Minnesota Central to add lights and gates to many of the crossings in the state. Between the two railroads, there's probably, this isn't not an exact number, but there's around 50 crossings that are in the Amtrak upgrade program. Some of them adding just lights, some of them adding lights and gates. It depends on the criteria of the crossing, but there are a bunch of rail crossings that are being upgraded in the state right now, not just through my program.
Which is terrific.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
great.
We've had a death at a rail crossing in my district in the last year, 2 years.
Yeah.
So thank you for your work. That's what makes it safe.
Yeah, so that's going on. So a little bit more what property management does. We manage, so if you look at this map, everything that's highlighted, you wouldn't think that, all of that's a rail line. And you can see the properties that we own that we, might lease out to people that, if we're not using it, we can lease the property out to somebody that might want to use it, say a rail user, that's those types of things for shipping, receiving, that stuff. So. A little bit more about bridges. I was talking about 172 bridges. So 10 years ago, we were about 50% of our bridges in the state-owned bridges that did not meet 286,000 pounds. We've come a long way because we're down to only 12 now that don't on state lines. Now, when I say 286, there's two requirements. There's 286 as a capacity, but then there's also 286. So you can go 200, you can load a train at 286,000 pounds, but you might only be able to go 10 miles an hour over that bridge. So the standard is 286 at 40. So we've got a little ways to go to get to 40, but our actual 286 capacity, it has improved substantially.
So, yeah. Where are the 12? Because if you have one bridge on one line, you're cooked.
That's correct.
Sure.
That is
So
100% correct.
are the 12 all lumped in one place?
They're not all lumped in one place. So we have been improving sort of corridor, doing corridor projects.
Rutland carries forward.
Burlington to Rutland. We did that. We did that along with our Amtrak to Burlington project. So it's 286 from Rutland to Burlington. We are just getting done Rutland down to Hoosick, New York. So that corridor, we had a build grant over the past 4 years. There were 28 bridges that didn't meet 286. We are on our last one. This coming season, there's a bridge in the Rutland Yard, Bridge 99.5. That is our very last bridge. That was a $53 million project, of which we got about 43 million from FRA. So that's been a great project. So that corridor will be done. It will be done Hoosick to Burlington, 286,000 pounds. That leaves our Green Mountain line and our Connecticut River line. So White River to Newport and Rutland to Bellows Falls. So, and of course we have out here, which we're not prioritizing 286 here. The Green Mountain corridor and the Washington County rail corridor are more important. We're focusing on those as priority over this line. But between our other three lines, that's where those bridges are, Senator. And you're right. One bridge is the weak link, and
Yeah,
100%
your
right.
weak link, it covers.
Yeah.
all. So basically from St. Albans,
So that's the New England Central.
yeah,
And that's privately owned, and they are 286 through Vermont. They have a problem in Mass that they are working on. And they should be 286 through Massachusetts, I'm gonna say this year, so.
and from Burlington to Rutland,
Yeah.
from Rutland to Albany is,
So the piece we own to Hoosick, New York,
yeah,
it will be 286,000 pounds this summer.
okay.
From Hoosick to Albany, I assume already is.
So Hoosick to Albany, I don't have a good handle on that railroad exactly, but I'm gonna say it is because that is that's a class one. So yeah, that one is. That is. Actually, I think about that for a second.
And when will that line be picked up so they can go faster? The only problem with, the Amtrak train is great anywhere down that line, from Burlington to Rutland to Fairhaven to get on. But when you get to New York State, you slow right down to
Yeah, so Burlington to Rutland So we own that. And then the piece from Rutland over to Whitehall, New York, that is owned, that's the Clarendon and Pittsburgh. So they just got, like I said, that Amtrak money I was talking earlier.
Yep.
They just last summer did a continuously welded rail project there. So this summer, they're gonna be finishing up their track work, which they're almost done. So speeds from Rutland over to New York will be increasing this summer. And we've actually been talking with Amtrak about changing the schedule so that we take a little time out of that, which will allow the train to go a little faster. So you're right, the last 2 years through that section have been a little slow, and it's because we've had construction going on there.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, here's the snippet that you've seen
But
before.
have you been on that?
No, but I bought it for him.
On behalf of us. Thank you.
It was,
It looks beautiful.
it was a requirement. Yeah. it
Yeah,
was-
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, it's in.
Did we do field trips?
Yeah,
We
that's what I
do.
was gonna, in the spring, is it gonna be up here?
We can bring it here. Yeah.
Where do you keep that thing?
So it's right now it's actually being certified, meaning we have to certify this truck every year to go on the rails, and it's actually being certified right now, but it should be back soon to start our inspection for the season. Because again, 172 bridges, every one of them has to be looked at every year. That's why we needed this truck,
Mhm.
and we will be doing that. So
So it's got a little basket on the bottom.
yeah, you can't see the basket, but it's underneath the bridge. There's people.
Does it hold more than one person?
There's
or
2 people in there.
people?
You can-
Cool.
But we're
We
gonna
can
put
do it.
you two on first,
Yeah.
and we're gonna, and Becca's gonna run it.
No.
And we'll see how we're gonna do.
I'll be over on that nice green area over there.
I thought you'd be up top running there, and we'll put those two down there.
We can put a video down there while she learns.
Oh, no.
So anyway, this is where we are as far as bridges, and we have a requirement again to inspect everyone. So I think that's the end of my little presentation. Now we can get into the actual budget if you'd like. And I can go through.
If you want any money, you will.
Otherwise, stop sharing. I'm not sharing anymore. Am I still sharing?
Yeah.
I have another question just on how does the, because there's another train that goes to Montreal.
Okay.
Now it does.
No, the one,
I don't think I am sharing.
Not one from Vermont.
The one on.
no, I know it's not
The
one
one
of
that
the ones, but
goes
I'm
to
just
New
wondering
York.
how they
Where they
connect.
had her on there.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
That ran up.
how they connect to.
They just stop at the
Montreal.
border
Okay.
and wait 2 hours.
Now you're good.
Okay.
Alright,
you.
so
Thank you.
people-
written that up there?
I've never been to New York.
So people do it.
You can do it, yeah. And we could do it too, but we just have to stop at the border.
Just, do
Well,
we still
it's
own,
not just
didn't
us,
we
it's
buy,
people from
clearing? A building up in Montreal.
They're doing it now,
area
so
for
they might
clearing
stay on that.
We didn't buy it.
We
This
were
is the.
looking at it.
Well, we didn't buy it. This is what I've been working on to, we're gonna have to have some sort of a lease, and Amtrak will be the one that leases it.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna have to lease the track level and then likely some space, the level up. And then one more level gets us to the Amtrak sort of concourse area. So we've got to lease track level and then
Wow.
how to get there. We're gonna have to build some stairs and escalators and things like that to get up there. So it's a little complicated, but it's doable. We're finding out it's doable. So. All right, I think tab 12 in your book. I was just gonna run through, because I'm probably getting close to running out of time, but I'm gonna run through some of the highlights.
Well,
11.
Oh, is it 11?
Well, is it in the
11,
white book?
sorry.
Is that what you wanted?
It is 11.
Okay.
I apologize.
Unless you've turned into the central garage.
I did not. I did not. So, in there's sort of the spreadsheet that kind of the overall spreadsheet view, and I can run through, some of the highlights in the budget. I won't go through every single one because it's a little boring, but, in this budget, there's 22 bridge projects. So for the past 4 years, we have been essentially focusing on Rutland down to Hoosick because that's where the federal money was. So that corridor for bridge projects has been kind of going on. While we have done other bridge projects, obviously we had to focus where the federal money was. So we are now completed or going to be complete with that project. So now we're sort of focusing on sort of the top 20 other bridges that are in our rail program. And we're also focusing on the corridor to the Green Mountain corridor and then the Washington County corridor. We have a project in here that is looking at a potential grant application, which would get those corridors fully 286, just like the one I was just talking about. When we apply for a grant, we do the corridor, the whole corridor. We don't just do one bridge when we apply for grants. So to apply for a grant, you have to get it to approximately 30% design before you're really competitive for federal money. So right now, like I said, there's 22 bridge projects that are sort of standalone, but there's also a bridge corridor sort of get application ready project in here for both the Green Mountain and the Connecticut River. So
We don't have that. We have.
yeah, that's the same thing. I just blew it up.
Oh, okay.
I just made it my old eyes. I can't see that.
Okay,
I can't see
okay.
it. So
Yeah, I can.
all I did was blow it up.
Okay, so it's in alphabetical order, not
Correct.
any particular priority order.
Yeah, it's alphabetical by town.
Okay,
That's how our system.
okay, ours is just five, whatever.
Dan, you're welcome to go through and highlight any specific ones you want to. And I also
Yeah.
see you have your colleague, Paul Libby, who I think is a project manager. I at least see him on a lot of local stuff for my area.
He is, so if I had my work chart back up, he's sort of my right-hand man. He's our senior project manager. So when I talk about all these projects, Paul sort of runs the projects. Very talented guy. He just knows his stuff. Don?
Yeah, I thought I'd point that
I
out.
won't say anything about
A good thing you said.
it. No, Paul is key to
I
our,
can hear you.
Paul is key to our rail program for sure. Paul is, he's one of the decision makers in the rail bureau. So
If we're good, rather than, if folks have specific projects that they want to ask questions about, feel free to jump in. I did have a couple, because I like to go through project by project in
Sure.
my area, if that's helpful.
yeah, so can I just highlight a few, and if I don't
Please do.
get to yours,
Yeah.
then jump in after. The first one is really the top one. The first one is Amtrak operations. This is both trains. So how it works with Amtrak is, we pay what's called actual. So the train costs X amount of dollars total to run. Subtract out the revenue that Vermont generates on that train. And then we have a percentage that we split the train between, so on the Vermonter, we have a percentage. I don't remember exactly what it is, but there's a percentage for the Vermonter between Connecticut, Mass, and Vermont. We pay a certain percentage. That's our portion. We pay to Amtrak every month. Same thing on the Ethan Allen, we split it with New York, minus the revenue that we generate. So, based on this coming year, we think those two trains, it's about $9.5 million for those two trains. That's what we pay, the revenue. So obviously the train costs a lot more. So that's what we're gonna pay, after revenue. So,
Can you give us detail at some point on that? And then there's also the federal government. Is that
so,
7.6 million that they give us?
right, so the federal government piece is what's called CMAQ, that's the
Mhm.
congestion mitigation
Yep.
federal funding through FHWA, yeah. So we use CMAQ funding for a portion of it, and we have state funding for the additional portion, so does that answer your question? about what the
Yeah, I
federal
would just
portion
like
is?
some more detail on it and then the Valley Flyer too. I don't know if you're gonna talk about that today, but we can talk about that another day.
Yeah, so the Valley, I wasn't gonna talk about that today, because that's not in the budget.
Okay, so maybe another time.
Sure,
I
and I'm
would,
happy to have a conversation with you on.
yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
but the detail of this, I would like to know how much, like, especially some history? I mean, does it change over time?
Yeah, so obviously, everything, everything goes on, right?
Yeah.
So we have incrementally increased our Amtrak budget to keep up with expenses over the years. So running a train is, those costs have gone up.
Sure.
So
And then ridership,
ridership has done great. We've actually, in our Vermont ridership, so obviously COVID, we shut the trains down
Yeah.
during COVID. Once we started up, we were the first state in the nation to get back to pre-COVID numbers.
wow,
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So our numbers are good on Amtrak.
Okay.
And the Ethan Allen, we've exceeded our ridership to Burlington. So that's been good. So yeah, so Amtrak's is good.
good.
Again, I just wanted to point out the second phase, sort of where we are with Amtrak Montreal. That's sort of the third line down. This is a placeholder. I don't know exactly how much money I'm going to need this coming year for the next phase of the study. I put in $100,000 as a placeholder. Again, that's sort of Vermont's portion of the next phase, so that we can continue to make progress to Montreal. And again, we're sharing the cost with Quebec, we're sharing it with Amtrak, we're sharing it with New York, because they're going to share that station as well. So that's what that line is. Jumping down, I just wanted to point out, jumping down into Barton, if you look at the transload facility equipment, what that is, that's actually going to be, this is an economic development project right in Barton for additional siding. And there's gonna be additional propane facility there in Barton. So we are helping with the cost of that siding. And this is a Northern Borders grant that we applied for and got. So so it's not just all state money. So it's good. We're advancing economic development in the Northeast Kingdom in Barton with that project.
That's great, because I was hoping that we would use economic development money for just all kinds of different transportation.
Yeah,
So yeah, if you don't mind pointing that out when you have it, that's wonderful. So that's the local for what?
so that in Barton, so if you look at, there's, so federal,
Oh, I see. So that's the federal.
$350,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and the local piece, so there's no state dollars in this. This is because the local piece is being provided by the railroad.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, jumping down to Coventry and Hartford. That is the corridor project I was talking about. So again, White River to Newport, we want to make that line 286,000 pounds. We have to get a grant application in, probably going to be a Christie grant, I would say, when that comes around. But we have to be competitive because the rail program, FRA doesn't give like what's called formula funds like the highway. Highway gets a certain amount of money every year, federal funds, they just know what they're going to get. We have to, in the rail program, we have to apply for it. We have to apply for these competitive grants. So to be competitive, we have to put the best grant possible in our application. So 30% design, getting our details ahead of time makes a difference for us to apply for grants. So this is us getting ready for that. And we have two, again, Coventry to Hartford is one. And then we have Bellows Falls to Rutland as another one. I talked about the corridor ID program a little bit already. That's on passenger service. So the Green Mountain Corridor ID project, I talked about that earlier. That includes the current Ethan Allen. It includes the expanded Ethan Allen down to Bennington and over. We have 3 platform projects in the budget. One is White River. So
Yes, well, I have many
Everything's
questions
in
about
White River.
it. Is. I do have many questions about that project.
So we have a couple things going on at that station. So we have the platform itself,
To make it ADA.
make it ADA, so it has to be 8 inches above rail. Right now, it's an old asphalt platform that is in disrepair, needs to be redone. So we've been working on that project a bit. It's taken us a while. It's a complicated project because there's actually 2 railroads right there that we're working. When you have more cooks in the kitchen, it takes longer to build build the pie. So we are, taking us a bit, but it should go out to bid very soon. We'll go, hopefully we'll have that, project underway. This summer.
You
I know.
run the show.
Oh, you're mid,
I'm
okay,
trying to listen and do other
this
things.
poor guy. These,
So just say yes.
yeah.
No, she's got to say yes.
All
right now.
point. So a couple of questions about the Hartford project.
Yes.
Well, I first off want to say, I'm sure you work with them very closely, but we have some very avid advocates for that station in
Mhm.
my community. And
Mhm.
Chris and Chuck Bohai,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
obviously a familiar name. He's still, they're making it happen. She's still very tall. But one of the pieces to this project that I think is being overlooked is that we have the weather vane still missing from our community. We have a not real weather vane, and the real weather vane is in the Shelburne Museum. And that is kind of caught in the craw of many residents. So I'm surprised that we're spending I'm happy about this project, but I'm wondering why we can't combine the return of the weather vane that was stolen from our community with this unveiling of the project. So I'm wondering if I just want to put that in your brain, because the idea that the real weather vane will not be there when we finish all this great work feels like such a loss,
Yeah.
because it's very significant to the people of White River Junction.
This is on the train station.
We have a
Yeah.
beautiful weather vane that was stolen from our community back in like the 80s,
Yeah.
like by a thief. And it was found by Sotheby's, and returned to us, but the Agency of Transportation took possession of it. It has not been returned to our community, and it's being housed in the Shelburne Museum.
It would be on top of the train.
And it was on, I don't know if we'd ever put the real one back on top. I think we would display it. It's our hope, but we really want that back. And it's something that comes up quite a bit. So if you are going to be doing work, if there's a way to have that returned to us at the same time, either paying for display. I know the town hall has wanted to house it, but just putting that out there, it's important to people. I know it might seem insignificant, but
It's not insignificant. Yeah, so the one that's there is a replica of that, and that is what's on the building now. This has spurred many discussions, as far as, historical preservation folks. So there is some discussion. I am not in control of it, okay?
Okay.
Just so you know, that is not, it is back in the state, and there's some folks between V-Trans and Historic Preservation that are in charge of it. It's not through me.
Okay.
But I'll take your concerns back and voice
spring
that.
unveiling at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, that just feels like such a natural connection, because we have wanted work at this station. And if you're gonna be getting rid of it, then you're taking down something else as well.
So the cupola on top, which is where the weather vane is on top of that cupola is in need of work, as well as the roof of the building. So that is, we're in design right now on those repairs. So that will be going on, probably not the same time as the plant. Well, it might be similar timing. It's a separate project.
Okay.
What
on
the
a separate
work
pad.
happening at the station?
Yeah, it's at the
Doing a bunch of
station.
stuff, yeah.
What
Yeah.
are they doing? White River Junction Station? What's the work at the station?
Yeah, so it's the platform is one, and then the cupola, there's windows, and there's some leaking around those windows, and there's some roof, part of the roof that's leaking, so.
Those are out there.
So,
So pretty, but.
yeah, so we've got some repair work, just maintenance
Are
repair
you
work,
raising the platform or just fixing?
both. So it's not consistent right now. We are gonna be making it consistent 8 inches above, top of rail. And yeah, improving it. And there's this is what took a little longer than we had hoped. There's actually, if you go on the backside of the station on the platform side, there's this bulkhead that went down to a set of stairs that went down to a tunnel, which leads from the station over to town, which is blocked off on the town side.
But no one's using this.
No, it's not usable. It's not usable, but we are taking the bulkhead piece out so that it's not an obstruction on our platform. That actually turned into a historical issue. which took us a little longer. So that's what sort of delayed our project a little bit, but
What's it meant for passengers to get on?
yeah, so it used to be, supposedly it was for pedestrians to get from the station into town without crossing all the tracks. But it's not ADA compliant and it's short, like it's not,
It's creepy.
it's a little, well, a little bit.
A lot of, yeah, those are pretty common.
It's not something I would want my wife and kids to be walking through, to be honest with you. So, yeah, yeah, it's not usable really. But that's part of the project is to kind of take that bulkhead out.
Okay, well, thank you for answering those questions. The people of Hartford, you'd be surprised. I've never been to a Hartford Historical Society meeting where I was like advocated to angrily, and this was the first. So when your historical society people are like shaking their fists at you, then you go, okay, I should bring it up. So thank you for that. And I did have some questions, and others might have similar with their own projects, but we do have some post flooding work that's identified in your budget. And so I'm wondering if you could, when we get to those sections or projects, you could talk a little bit about how does FEMA work with this?
Yeah.
And how you're prioritizing some of the flooding. I saw some projects in Barry. There's some stuff in Ludlow and Cavendish. So a little bit on that would be helpful, I think.
Okay, so I think everybody knows that, July 10th is a bad day in Vermont the last couple of years, because we've had flooding on that day 2 years in a row. The projects that are in this budget are mitigation projects and permanent projects from the 2023 storm. Believe it or not, the 2024 storm, last year's storm, we're done. Different flood, different scenario. In the 2023 storm, we had more structures that were damaged, meaning bridge abutments, other things like that. Last year's storm was more culverts, washouts, things like that were quicker to repair. So what's in this budget? There's 19 FEMA projects, $6.7 million of which FEMA is paying for the majority of that.
Nice.
So, so what we have to do to move from emergency response to kind of a long-term project is, first of all, FEMA says, go do what you gotta do, basically, within reason to get this railroad back open. Okay, so we do that. That's what we do when there's a storm. Then we have to go back to sort of phase 2 of FEMA where it says, okay, what is the cost to bring it to what's called pre-disaster condition? Okay, so that's sort of phase 2. And then phase 3 is, how do you mitigate this from happening again in this area? Is there a reasonable design or method that you can do to that area to make sure that that doesn't happen again? So you're not going every year to a culvert that keeps getting blocked or it's just not big enough. So maybe you upsize that culvert 2 sizes, 1 side or whatever, so it meets the current hydraulics that, 100 years ago wasn't designed for that, right? So that's sort of how we are. So now we're sort of 2 years in, we've sort of evaluated those 19 projects are projects that we've gone through that process. We're now in the construction phase of the mitigation and the final product. Project engineering that was required for those projects. So that's kind of what those 19 projects are. They're 2023. It's taken us a couple of years. So initially, we don't generally do, get it back open, right? And then the second phase takes longer, and the third phase takes even longer because then you're starting to get into some of the permitting, hydraulic engineering, mitigation. Those things take time to analyze.
Go ahead.
So how successful are you getting to stage 3? Where you mitigate, where you actually do the work proper?
Yeah, that's where we are. We're pretty successful. FEMA's been great to work with because they've been with us from the beginning.
Yeah.
We're working with them through all the steps. And we keep them informed on, this is what we were pre-disaster. Our engineering is telling us we need this. They approve it or not, or come up with a different engineering solution that they will approve. And that's where we are now. We're at the approved design.
Stage 3.
Yeah, stage 3.
Wouldn't it save a ton of money if we skipped bringing it back to where it was pre-disaster?
Okay, so we've had this
Right. the first time?
Yeah, we've had this discussion with FEMA as far as a corridor sort of mitigation effort ahead of time. Like, let's evaluate, and is there money enough? And there are some. The honest answer on that is there's some money for that. It's not enough to do a whole rail corridor. And to be honest with you, it's not their priority. There's, they have FEMA, just like everybody, they have only a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
And, we are looking a little bit at that. When I say we apply for grant funding for corridors on bridges, we look at that. Does it meet the current hydraulics? Does it meet the 100-year flood?
Yeah.
All that stuff. So that's part of our analysis when we do those grant opportunities, like I just said, Rutland down to Hoosick. We looked at that for all those bridges. We actually down in Danby, there was actually a bridge that we raised it up about 18 inches. And it wasn't because the structure itself needed it for structure. It was because flood mitigation. We did that proactively.
So Dan, I did want to know, we have on our agenda at 10:15, we're going to switch to governor's appointments, but
Okay,
that's the
sorry.
only thing on our agenda. So I think, so you're free to keep going, I think.
So the chair said he would be back at 10:30 so that we could do the appointments.
So you got till 10:30 to keep going.
Okay.
That's the
17
time.
minutes.
Yeah, did you have time? One other question on that angle of things. We had Representative Peter Anthony for
Mhm.
many years bring up the bridge in
308.
there, 308.
Trussell 308.
How where did that end up? He's not living in his home anymore. He's out of his home, so he might have less urgency to the need to remove that bridge.
City still would like it for me.
So yeah, what's the plan with that?
It should be coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, like removing.
So here's the problem. The problem is that there's a customer.
Former customer.
No, that customer's still there.
Well, they're not using the bridge.
Well, it's because it's not
Right.
usable currently.
Well, that's a good way. to-
You can't run a train over
Yeah.
it now. So, if you look at where that bridge is in our overall priority of all bridges that we have, it doesn't rank in the top 20 because of serving.
I'd be surprised if there's a bridge over it, because it's just doing one customer. Like, if one bridge could be of higher priority than one that just only serves one.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. So that's the problem, right? So, we have other bridges, we have only a certain amount of money. So that bridge obviously is not in our top 20. However, it's still important for economic development, right? So
Awesome.
we want to serve all rail customers. So anyway, long story short is we did enter into an agreement with the railroad and the city to remove it. Now here's the other thing. If you look at the flood data, that bridge is not the problem in Barry. There are other problems in. Now, is it a problem?
You could just change, not have the pier in the middle of the river and just put the pier
Yeah.
on the sides or something like that. They were open to any solution that doesn't have a pier in the middle of the river.
So there's two piers in the river.
Or
That bridge is a 3-span.
Right.
And
Right, if you have like a tree that gets against two
Yeah.
of those piers and then.
so we did do some preliminary design on that bridge, which would replace the 3-span with a 2-span that would improve hydraulics there. So we're hoping to have that bridge out of there temporarily while we finish designing the new bridge.
So the customer would stop using trucks and would use the train?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely. Right now, they are unfortunately having to, they can't bring in, so the largest stuff comes in on train. Not everything that they want has the ability to come in on a truck because it's too big. And of course, their costs are more when you have to take one individual slab per truck. It's more expensive to ship. So anyway, long story short is, we are working on a solution there.
is it in the book?
It is.
It is.
Yep, you've got it. What I see is bridge, thank you for saying bridge 308. I was trying to figure out which one it was.
Yeah. Bridge
But it looks
208.
like you're getting a brick grant to help fund it.
Okay, so that was we actually, we're working on it. We don't have it. We're working on trying to get a grant to that.
you think you'll take out the piers and the bridge this year?
We have, again, just signed an agreement this week. That basically all parties agree that the bridge sort of comes out with the intent that.
Okay, that's a good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that update. That's just always been this recurring thing, and there's no Peter Anthony this year to put that bill in, so.
Yeah,
There is
Thought I'd
still,
follow up.
he's just not unbilled.
True, he's still very much around.
yeah,
He's still,
He's
Yes.
so, that's
Yeah.
good,
I
good for
got an
him.
email about the granite museum,
Oh, there you go. Thank you for that.
which we want the train to, well, you could have a full tourism train from Montpelier to the granite museum.
you think?
A
the whacker.
little trolley,
Well, Charlie?
Probably
open
forget.
air trolley.
Another, there was only one very large sum of money that I had a question
Yeah.
about, since we're kind of bouncing around a little bit, which was, it looked like about $1 billion. It was like 99 million was what it was listed as. Yeah, there we go, 999 million, so I guess 100 million, not 100. I
Yeah.
apologize. It's under statewide rail, and it's projects for the purchase of interstate rail passenger service and related expenses. And I think it's a lingering piece from the 2025 budget. But I'm surprised. It's under statewide. It's rail pass period service. That's what- Yeah, so is that just a regular contract that we did?
I'm trying to find out.
What page?
Yeah.
Page 29 of your
So, rail,
section. I think it's the fourth in the statewide.
Oh, I see, yeah. Oh, yeah, it is page 29. Yeah, 99 million.
so I guess I need to look at what you're looking at, because that doesn't show up on.
Yeah, what is that?
Oh, so, all right, so this is a sort of an accounting. This is not, so you have to look at, current year, okay? So if you look at current year, that's what it is, but unfortunately, it tallies up all the years that we have so far.
Oh,
And, that, it's not really an accurate, representation of what's happening. You have to look at just the estimated current year of
Okay.
25. But that is, so that's cumulative for 25. If you look at 26,
Yeah, there's,
it's what I had on the very top line. So there should be another one for Amtrak services. So every year we make a new.
it's not there.
It was the first one, I can't remember, so it should be under,
Is it small?
yeah, what
Is there 750?
It's, okay, so this one, so right here, this is the same thing, it's the second one down.
okay. Okay, the stimulus funds?
No.
The
it says
Amtrak-
Amtrak operations,
parentheses.
26,
26.
so year 26,
On page 1.
Oh.
The second one on page 1.
yeah, so this is a problem with, not a problem, but it's an issue with our, what's called VPINs. Where things carry over year to year to year to year, and that one shouldn't carry over like that.
Oh, that has that.
This is
too,
a-
that has the 9 million.
Well, so that's just 9 million, so that's the estimated for 26 in this one, but for some reason, we had, for many years, just kept accumulating.
Okay.
We don't do it that way anymore, but, I don't know why it's showing up in this book, that shouldn't show up in this book.
Well, it sounds
Okay, well,
like,
So it's not in the
page
front.
29 if you want to fix it.
Well, it's, what I'm saying is it's not in the front of the book, right, so there's nothing in current year
Oh,
under that. If you look at the current year, under that same page, there's no money in it, no, in that, where was it? What page?
Oh, it's on page 1. Page 1 and 29 are the 2 pages.
Okay, so if we go to 29,
I apologize for
No, I'm
taking down
glad
rabbit
you-
hole, because I was,
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess my main question is, what is that for?
it was for Amtrak. So it's here, so if you look here, in 26, there's $0.
Yep.
So there is no money in this current.
Yeah, that's,
That was cumulative for many, many years, right, cumulative, but now we've moved it into its own print 26 year over year, so it won't keep accumulating
okay.
like that.
Oh, you made it a new.
We actually did a couple of times, like this is 25,
Oh, yeah.
so there's print 25. So this shouldn't keep going, is what I'm.
So I
saying.
wonder how many years this is.
It's a lot, probably, but But because forever we were just under one contract. Now we do it year over year.
Okay, so to summarize that, we are spending 8.75 million this year, but it's in a different spot. It's the Amtrak,
We have 9.5.
9.5.
Yeah, it's your very first one on that spreadsheet.
Okay, so we're spending $9.5 million on the passenger service,
Correct, both Amtrak.
both Amtrak. And we do that every year.
We do.
And that is a contract we negotiate, or that's just that they tell us how much we pay?
So what we negotiate is sort of a level of service. Like we want a northbound and a southbound train every year. We want whatever. So there's certain things, right? So if we wanted to use this, I'm going to make something up that wouldn't happen. But to give you an example, there's what's called the Acela train, which is like really fast, more modern cars and all that stuff. If we had that, it would cost more. We have the standard Amtrak train service that comes through Vermont. So that's what we negotiate, right? So there's certain things like we could put a baggage car on there, but we don't have station agents to handle baggage at every station. So we would not pay for a baggage car because we don't have the people that we would have to pay for that service and all that stuff. So, we don't have the large stations like the big cities have. So they really don't need the baggage cars. So we don't pay for that.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is that's the piece that we negotiate, the level of
It's a
service,
service
The level of
negotiation rather than like a,
but we pay actuals. Whatever we tell them we want for service, we pay actuals minus revenue.
okay, that's really helpful to understand. And that's like a yearly process we
Yeah.
go through with Amtrak.
The revenues are not.
Revenue's up, ridership's up.
Wow, okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, so can I follow up on that? Cause I do want to talk more about Amtrak just later, with you or with Amtrak
Yeah.
or whoever, but, there's a capacity issue because of all the other folks who get on the train, both north and south. So sometimes Vermonters can't get a seat. So do you know how, and that's a fair amount at the time. Do we know?
It's
how
more
much?
holidays. It's not a fair amount of time. I would say there's more capacity. We have more capacity on the existing trains on a normal day, but when
Do
you do get to
know,
like,
though?
so we track that.
Okay, great.
So, school time, vacation time, like sometimes it depends on like holidays. We will definitely have capacity issues. We have had discussions with Amtrak. Can we add another car
Exactly,
just for those times?
right.
So we do have some capacity issues where the train overnights.
Mhm.
So it comes into Vermont. In St. Albans where it sits at night, it has to go through a Y. So the train has to go up, back into this and come back down. So it's headed the right way the next morning. That Y has a certain amount of capacity. It can only have so many cars that can fit through the Y. So, we couldn't add like 3 more cars. They just don't fit. We could possibly add 1 more. There's a cost to that. We would have to get both Connecticut and Mass to agree to an additional car. So it's not just Vermont saying we want another car. So that, because that cost of that car would go all the way to DC, right? So that it's not just in Vermont. The bigger problem right now, and I think it's gonna get better, is Amtrak doesn't have extra cars. The Am fleet coaches are older. We are getting new equipment in about 2 years, which means the Am fleets will now then go into inventory, which maybe we could add an Am fleet coach to the new. We could maybe put one of the older ones on with the new ones to add a capacity. We haven't really got there because the current answer, they don't have extra coaches. They just don't. So that is something we should look at down the road.
And you're actually investing in a rail plan. I don't know if that kind of thing could be something that could be added for consideration to your rail plan that you update.
Well,
So capacity is part of the rail plan
Okay.
for Amtrak. We are looking at that.
and so the rail plan has started. So when does that come to this committee or the legislature?
You know, with.
I think it's after
We've
it
had-
goes to the,
we've had,
FRA.
well, we've had a fair number of public meetings.
right, the
Did you go to the
second,
one?
well, the second one was in Brattleboro,
Yeah,
which
did
was
you go to that
great.
one?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I thought you,
yeah, and, your folks came to the,
fellows.
they stopped at Bellas Falls so they could see that situation, which is really good.
Yeah.
Because that's a pretty complicated area.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, but it's moving ahead.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
the town's buying the station,
Oh, well aware.
and I know it's not you guys.
Well aware. So, yeah, we can look at capacity. I think the problem right now is more inventory than anything else.
Mhm.
But it's not as big. There are some people that, think that's a huge issue, but if you look at the data, it isn't.
All right, so provide us the data, please. That would be great, because I have a lot of folks who think that's an issue.
Yeah, perhaps you could follow up, Dan. If, I know that our station keeps, Chris literally writes it down every day and like will email me or text me a photo of the numbers of people. But I know you actually do have previous data and you collect that. Do you-
Amtrak does.
Yeah.
And we ask Amtrak if we have a question, they'll
Would-
provide that information.
Would you mind sharing with the committee over email, perhaps, any data that might be relevant on this topic on ridership?
Yeah, so
Just like the link.
we do at Rail Council, we provide ridership information every quarter for
Okay,
Rail Council.
do you mind following up after we're done?
I
here
can give you,
today?
I can send over the last report from
That
Rail
would be-
Council.
That'd be lovely. And Megan is fantastic. If you email her anything, she'll send it out to us typically, or Senate_transportation as well.
Yeah, I can give you the last Rail Council.
Okay.
Maybe just the quarter number is not that helpful, but it's helpful. I mean, if you had, unless you had that same quarter prior years or something, I assume you're.
Yeah, just some sort of trend.
Annual data
Yeah.
or quarterly data that's trended over.
Well, quarterly is helpful just
Yeah,
because of the
if you
seasonality.
just have one, it's not,
Yeah,
you want to see the quarterly over the last 12 quarters.
yes.
Yeah, any information would be helpful, especially to make the case I think that you started with, which is Vermont's doing really well with ridership.
It is, yeah.
And that's a great feather in our cap.
And that's happening with most trains where the projected ridership ends up being much lower than the actual ridership. That happened in Maine, that happened recently somewhere in Illinois. Yeah, people really like trains, and it's definitely a way to get people to.
I had only, for me personally, one other question, and then you're bumping up on your time that we've.
Yeah.
You have Operation Lifesaver in here,
Yeah,
and I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to that. I thought the federal government paid for that.
so Operation Lifesaver is a national program. It's a nonprofit. It's railroad safety program, basically educational program. We fund, so I have one employee that spends 50% of their time on sort of Amtrak issues and grants, and 50% of the time doing Amtrak, Operation Lifesaver issues. She's our Vermont state coordinator for Operation Lifesaver. So she goes around to driver's ed classes and schools. She goes to a lot of the events and she talks about rail safety, stay off the tracks and what happens in this scenario, or what does the blue sign mean at every of the crossings, all the railroad safety issues. So we're very involved in Operation Lifesaver, and it's I'm going to say this now, knock on wood, but we have been, our numbers for train incidents are I shouldn't
I
say
know,
that.
no, we should.
I shouldn't say aren't too bad.
You say not increasing.
They're not currently increasing. I think we've made success. There's every summer, you might see it around the state. Operation Lifesaver has a variable message board that we'll put out that says, see tracks, think trains, or just different messages about railroads. Because people think that cars have the right of way over a crossing, and they don't. Trains always have the right of way, and they always try to beat the train, or they always think, I'm going to be able to hear it. I no problem, I can hear it. And then in reality, the train's on top of you before you even hear it. So especially with continuously welded rail, we don't have the old click clack a lot of times anymore. Trains, all the noise is behind the train. It's not in front of the train. So, 59, 79 miles an hour on an Amtrak train it's on you before you even know it. And so it's like the old adage, you go to an airport and you think that plane is just floating. It's going 200 miles an hour. You know, same thing with a train. You've got this mass coming at you at 70 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, but you think it's going 20, you can get out of the way. It's on you before you know. So anyways, Operation Lifesaver, we do fund that. We do participate in the funding, and we're actively doing railroad safety around the state.
Well, we appreciate that proactive work. I'm really happy to hear you're at driver's ed programs, actually. I had not.
Truck driver trainings.
Oh, yes, if you're getting a CDL, you should compare, because that seems to be what happens is people are getting, at least in all the horrendous videos that you can find online of train versus car or truck, it seems like trucks pulling up and then the back end is what sometimes gets hit. They get stuck, so.
We even do first responders, we'll do state police, we'll do fire, around the state, we'll do lots of different folks. We're very active in the Operation Lifesaver program, so.
Well, thank you, Dan, so much. And thank you for passing the torch to Evan as well and splitting up with the aviation side. We didn't really talk about that, but this is, I think, the first year that you're really.
Yeah, so December, 7 years, I was aviation director, so for 7 years, and then so now focusing on rail now exclusively.
Good.
Good. Yeah, that's great.
In Montreal. That
Get the
was
train in Montreal. Let's see if we can get that done.
all the glory and all the blame. And
It's on me.
We had a few.
Think of the glory, don't worry.
But I think we may want him to come back to speak with us again at another point today.
Yeah, or Amtrak.
And we,
Yeah, I
thank you,
would say-
Paul.
Amtrak.
We'd like Amtrak in here, but I asked and they said no.
Really?
They have been in before.
They.
Let me see if I can work on
Something
it.
about the federal.
Let me see if I can help you with that.
Something about, yeah, Dan, if you can help with that.
Are they not allowed to box people
They
now?
need gas money.
Yeah, there was some questions about funding that they didn't want to answer.
Oh, my. Well, we can tell, gee whiz.
So
You
has,
can meet them on the train.
we'll take 5 or 10 minutes and then, come back, and we have to get serious about, appointments.
Yes,
Yeah,
I did.
I didn't mind.
I did one.
good.
Did I have one or two?
Thank you, Dan.
And we have to vote on the secretary, we have to vote on public safety, and we need to vote again on the, motor vehicle commissioner. The question is, do you want him back here to do that, or do you feel comfortable just voting? So, because we have 2 approvals. We have one that went before the 1st of January, and then we have the after January. This is the vote on the after January. And if you have any further questions of him, I'm happy to get him up on the screen and back. If we don't have, we'll just vote on it.
Feel pretty good.
Yeah, he seems like he hasn't changed that much.
Since January.
You think,
Yeah.
you think it's the same person? You don't think he's done any
So far,
shoplifting?
so good.
We haven't done any of that.
I am going to House Energy around 11:01.
11:20? We should be,